The phone's shrill ring sliced through the silence of Ethan's Brooklyn apartment, yanking him from a dreamless sleep. It was 2 a.m., and the name flashing on the screen Jacob sent a jolt of dread through his chest. His brother hadn't called in years, not since their last fight, when words cut deeper than knives. "Ethan, I'm in trouble." Jacob's voice cracked through the line, raw and desperate. "I need you to take Lily. She's 2. I can't do this anymore." Ethan sat bolt upright, his heart hammering. Lily. His niece. The child he'd never met. Born to a brother who'd spiraled into a life Ethan couldn't follow. He gripped the phone, his mind racing. "Jacob, what the hell are you talking about? Where are you?" No answer. Just a shaky breath. Then, "Please, Ethan. She's got no one else. I'm leaving her at your door. I'm sorry." The line went dead. Ethan stumbled to the window, peering into the pre-dawn gloom. The street below was empty, save for the flicker of a street lamp. He turned to Caleb, his partner of 3 years, who was now awake, his dark eyes wide with concern. "What's going on?" Caleb asked, his voice soft but steady, like the anchor Ethan always needed. "Jacob," Ethan muttered, running a hand through his messy hair. He's leaving his kid with us. Lily. She's 2. Caleb's face froze, a mix of shock and something else hope. Maybe. They talked about kids, dreamed of a family, but not like this. Not dropped into their lives like a bomb. Ethan paced the small living room, the hardwood creaking under his bare feet. He can't just do this. He can't just leave her. Before Caleb could respond, a soft knock echoed from the door. Ethan's stomach dropped. He crossed the room in 3 strides, yanking the door open to find a tiny girl in a pink coat, clutching a stuffed rabbit, her wide blue eyes staring up at him. A note was pinned to her sleeve. "Her name is Lily. I'm sorry. Jacob." No bag, no instructions, just a child and a ghost of a brother vanishing into the night. Ethan knelt, his throat tight. "Hey, Lily," he whispered, voice breaking. She didn't cry, didn't speak, just looked at him with a trust that felt like a punch to the gut. Caleb appeared beside him, his hand warm on Ethan's shoulder. "We've got this," Caleb said, though his voice trembled. "We'll figure it out." They brought Lily inside, her small body curling into Ethan's arms as if she belonged there. Caleb grabbed a blanket, draping it over her as she drifted to sleep on the couch. The apartment, once a haven for their quiet life, Ethan's carpentry tools in one corner, Caleb's half-finished canvases in another, now felt too small for the weight of this moment. Morning came too fast. Sunlight spilled through the window, illuminating Lily's peaceful face. Ethan and Caleb sat at the kitchen table, coffee untouched, the note between them. "What do we do?" Ethan asked, his voice low. "I don't know how to be a dad. And Jacob, he's gone. He's gone." Caleb reached for his hand, his fingers steady. "We don't have to have all the answers today. But she's here, and she needs us. We can do this, Ethan. Together." Ethan wanted to believe him, but doubt gnawed at him. He'd spent years building walls against his family's judgment, against the world's whispers about 2 men in love. Now, those walls felt paper thin. Lily stirred, her tiny voice murmuring, "Bunny." Ethan's heart cracked open. He handed her the rabbit, and her smile was a flicker of light in the chaos. They spent the day in a blur, buying diapers, formula, and a car seat from a corner store. Caleb called his sister, Maya, a social worker in Queens, who promised to help navigate the legal mess. "You'll need to file for emergency custody," she said over the phone, her tone brisk but kind. "Jacob's abandonment makes it complicated, but I'll guide you." Ethan barely heard her. His mind was on Jacob, his little brother, once his shadow, now a stranger. They'd grown up in a small Ohio town, where their father's sermons condemned people like Ethan. When Ethan came out at 18, his family turned their backs, except Jacob, who'd hugged him and whispered, "I don't care who you love." But addiction had stolen Jacob years ago, and now Ethan was left with his daughter. That night, as Lily slept in a makeshift crib of pillows, Ethan and Caleb lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. "What if I mess this up?" Ethan whispered. "What if I'm not enough?" Caleb turned to him, his eyes fierce. "You're already enough. You answered that call. You opened that door. That's more than Jacob could do." Ethan wanted to argue, but Caleb's lips found his, soft and grounding. For a moment, the world was just them two men, flawed and frightened, but choosing each other. Choosing Lily. The days that followed were a crash course in parenting. Lily was a quiet child, but her needs were relentless: diapers, tantrums, endless questions in her tiny voice. Ethan, who'd spent his life carving wood into furniture, now carved out space in his heart for her. Caleb, ever the artist, painted her a mural of stars on the apartment wall, his hands steady even when his voice wasn't. But the world outside their door wasn't kind. At the grocery store, an older woman sneered when Caleb kissed Lily's forehead, muttering, "Shouldn't be raising kids." Ethan's fists clenched, but Caleb's calm hand on his arm stopped him. "She's not worth it," Caleb said, but the sting lingered. Maya's visits became a lifeline. She brought paperwork, advice, and a fierce belief in them. "You're doing this right," she told them one evening, watching Lily giggle as Ethan tickled her. "But you need to be ready. The system, the court's theory, not always friendly to couples like you." Ethan's jaw tightened. He'd faced judgment before, but now it wasn't just about him. It was about Lily, who deserved a home, not a battlefield. He looked at Caleb, painting with Lily, their laughter filling the room, and felt a fire ignite in his chest. This was his family now, and he'd fight for it. Weeks turned into months, and Lily became the heartbeat of Ethan and Caleb's world. Their Brooklyn apartment, once a quiet space of late-night talks and shared dreams, now buzzed with the chaos of toddler life-spilled juice, toy trains underfoot, and Lily's bright laughter that could pierce even Ethan's darkest moods. But the weight of Jacob's absence hung heavy, a shadow that lingered in every quiet moment. Ethan threw himself into fatherhood with a ferocity that surprised even him. He learned to braid Lily's hair, guided by YouTube tutorials, his calloused hands clumsy but determined. Caleb, with his endless patience, taught her to name colors, his artist's eye delighting in her fascination with red. Yet, beneath their new rhythm, tension simmered. Jacob hadn't called, hadn't texted. Ethan checked his phone obsessively, half hoping, half dreading a sign. One chilly October morning, Maya arrived with news. "The court set a date for the custody hearing," she said, her voice steady but her eyes wary. "You've got a strong case. But, Ethan, Caleb, you need to know. The judge assigned is Richard Harlan. He's old school, conservative. He's been vocal about traditional families." Ethan's stomach churned. He glanced at Lily, stacking blocks on the rug, oblivious to the storm brewing. "What does that mean for us?" he asked, his voice low. Maya hesitated. It means you'll have to prove you're the best home for her. Not just good, the best. Harlan's got a history of favoring relatives, even distant ones, over non-traditional guardians. Caleb's hand found Ethan's under the table. A silent vow. We'll fight, Caleb said, his voice fierce. She's ours. But doubt crept in like damp rot. Ethan lay awake that night, staring at the mural of stars Caleb had painted for Lily. What if they lost her? What if the world saw two gay men and decided they weren't enough? He thought of his father's voice, sharp as a blade. You're an abomination. He hadn't spoken to his parents in a decade, but their judgment echoed in his fears. The next day, Ethan took Lily to the park, her tiny hand in his. She squealed as she chased pigeons, her pink boots splashing in puddles. A woman on a bench smiled at them, then frowned when Caleb joined, kissing Ethan's cheek. You too, raising her? She asked, her tone sharp. Yeah, Ethan said, his jaw tight. She's our daughter. The woman's lips pursed, but she said nothing, turning away. Ethan felt the familiar burn of anger, but Lily's giggle pulled him back. Daddy, Ethan, swing, she demanded, and he lifted her into the air, her joy a shield against the world's stares. Back home, Caleb was sketching Lily's face, his charcoal smudging the page. You okay? He asked, catching Ethan's expression. No, Ethan admitted, sinking onto the couch. I'm scared, Caleb. What if they take her? What if we're not enough? Caleb set down his sketchpad, his eyes fierce. We're more than enough. We love her. We show up. That's what matters. Ethan wanted to believe him, but the hearing loomed like a guillotine. Maya coached them relentlessly how to dress, how to speak, how to hide their fear. Don't let Harlan see you waver, she warned. He'll pounce on any weakness. The night before the hearing, Ethan found a letter in the mail. No return address. His hands shook as he opened it. Jacob's scrawl filled the page. I'm sorry, Ethan. I'm not strong like you. Lily deserves better than me. Keep her safe. No number. No clue where he was. Ethan crumpled the paper, tears burning his eyes. Caleb found him on the fire escape. The cities hum below them. He's gone. Caleb, Ethan whispered. He's really gone. Caleb pulled him close, his warmth a lifeline. Then we'll be her everything, he said. We already are. The hearing was a blur of sterile walls and cold stares. Judge Harlan, a stern man with wire-rimmed glasses, peered at them like they were specimens. Ethan wore a suit that felt like a costume, his hands clammy as he held Caleb's under the table. Lily was with Maya, safe for now, but her absence felt like a missing limb. The lawyer, a pro bono advocate Maya had found, argued their case. Ethan's stable job as a carpenter, Caleb's freelance art career, their loving home. But Harlan's questions cut deep. Mr. Carter, he said to Ethan, your brother entrusted you with this child. But what qualifies you, as a non-traditional couple, to raise her? Ethan's throat tightened, but Caleb spoke first, his voice steady. Love qualifies us. Your honor. Stability. Commitment. We've been her parents every day since she arrived. That's what she knows. Harlan's expression didn't soften, but he nodded, scribbling notes. The hearing ended with no decision, just a promise to review. Ethan felt like he'd run a marathon, his chest tight with hope and dread. That night, they tucked Lily into bed, her stuffed rabbit tucked under her arm. Story: Daddy Caleb. she asked, her voice sleepy. Caleb read her goodnight moan, his voice a soft melody. Ethan watched, his heart swelling. This was worth fighting for. But the world wasn't done testing them. A week later, a social worker arrived unannounced, her clipboard a weapon. "We've had a complaint," she said, her eyes scanning the apartment. "Someone claims this isn't a suitable environment for a child." Ethan's blood ran cold. "Who?" he demanded, but she wouldn't say. Caleb's hand on his arm kept him grounded, but the fear was a living thing now, clawing at his chest. As the social worker left, promising a follow-up, Ethan's phone buzzed. An unknown number. He answered, his voice sharp. "Who is this?" A familiar voice, slurred and broken. "Ethan, it's me. I messed up. I need to see her." "Jacob." Ethan's hand shook as he held the phone. Jacob's voice a ghost from a life he'd tried to forget. "Where are you?" he demanded, his voice low to keep from waking Lily. Caleb looked up from the couch, his sketchpad forgotten, eyes wide with alarm. "I'm in the city," Jacob mumbled, his words slurring into each other. I need to see her. Ethan. Please." Ethan's chest tightened, anger and pity warring inside him. "You left her, Jacob. You left her at my door like she was nothing. And now you want to see her." "I know I screwed up," Jacob said, his voice breaking. "I'm trying to get clean. I miss her." Ethan wanted to scream, to hang up, but Caleb's hand on his arm stopped him. "Hear him out," Caleb whispered, his eyes steady. "For Lily." They agreed to meet at a diner in Manhattan, a neutral ground. The next morning, Ethan and Caleb sat in a worn booth, Lily on Caleb's lap, her tiny fingers playing with a straw. Jacob walked in, looking like a shadow of the boy Ethan once knew, gaunt, unshaven, his eyes hollow but flickering with something like hope. "Lily," Jacob whispered, tears welling as he knelt beside her. She looked at him, curious but distant, then buried her face in Caleb's chest. Ethan's heart ached for Jacob, for Lily, for the mess of it all. "I'm not here to take her," Jacob said quickly, seeing Ethan's tension. "I know I can't. I needed to see she's okay." "She's more than okay," Caleb said, his voice gentle but firm. "She's loved. She's safe." Jacob nodded, his hands trembling as he pulled out a photo from his pocket, a younger him holding newborn Lily, his smile bright. "I wasn't always like this," he said, voice raw. "I wanted to be better for her." Ethan's throat burned. He remembered that Jacob, the one who'd followed him everywhere, who'd believed in him when no one else did. "Then why'd you leave her?" he asked, quieter now. Jacob looked away, shame etching his face. "I was drowning. I thought you'd give her what I couldn't." The conversation was cut short when Lily spilled her juice, giggling as Caleb cleaned it up. Jacob watched, a sad smile flickering. "You're good with her," he told them. "Both of you." They parted with no promises, just Jacob's number scrawled on a napkin and a plea to stay in touch. Ethan felt unsteady, like the ground had shifted. Caleb squeezed his hand as they walked home, Lily dozing in her stroller. "He's trying," Caleb said. "That's something." But the social worker's visit lingered like a storm cloud. Days later, Maya called with worse news. "The complaint came from your parents," she said, her voice tight. "They're petitioning for custody." Ethan froze, the phone nearly slipping from his hand. His parents Eleanor and Reverend Thomas Carter hadn't spoken to him since he came out. Now they wanted Lily. They don't even know her, he said, his voice shaking. They've never met her. They're claiming moral grounds, Maya said. They say they can provide a stable, traditional home. Harlan's listening. Caleb's face darkened, a rare anger flaring. They abandoned you, Ethan. They don't get to waltz in now and take her. But the fear was real. Ethan's parents lived in a polished Ohio suburb, with a white picket fence and a church that adored them. To a judge like Harlan, they were the picture of stability. Ethan and Caleb, with their Brooklyn apartment and unconventional love, were a risk. They threw themselves into preparing for the next hearing. Maya connected them with a lawyer, Sarah, who specialized in LGBT family cases. You've got a strong case, Sarah told them, her voice confident. You've been her parents in every way. But we need to show Harlan your bond with Lily is unbreakable. They documented everything: photos of Lily painting with Caleb, videos of Ethan reading her bedtime stories, notes from her daycare teacher praising their care. But Ethan couldn't shake the image of his father's stern face, his mother's silent judgment. One evening, as Caleb tucked Lily in, Ethan found an old photo in a drawer of him and Jacob as kids, grinning in a treehouse Ethan had built. He stared at it, memories flooding back. Jacob had always been his protector, even when Ethan was the older one. Now, he had to protect Lily, no matter the cost. The second hearing was brutal. Eleanor and Thomas sat across the courtroom, their faces unreadable. Ethan's mother avoided his gaze, but his father's eyes burned with disapproval. Sarah presented their case with fierce precision, showing Lily's drawings, her laughter in videos, the life they'd built. But the Carter's lawyer was ruthless. Mr. Carter, he said to Ethan, you've had no contact with your parents for years. Isn't it true you've created an unstable environment, choosing a lifestyle that conflicts with Lily's best interests? Ethan's blood boiled, but Sarah's warning glance kept him quiet. Caleb answered instead, his voice steady. Our lifestyle is love, sir. We've given Lily a home where she's cherished. Can my client's parents say the same, when they've never even met her? The room went silent, Harlan's pen pausing. For the first time, Ethan felt a flicker of hope. But Harlan's face gave nothing away. We'll reconvene in 2 weeks, he said, dismissing them. Outside, Ethan's parents approached. His mother's voice was soft but cold. We're doing this for Lily's soul, Ethan. Ethan's fists clenched, but Caleb stepped between them. Her soul's just fine, he said, his voice low. She's loved. That's what matters. As they walked away, Lily in Ethan's arms, he felt the weight of the fight ahead. But her tiny hand on his cheek grounded him. Daddy, Ethan. Home? She asked. Yeah, baby, he said, kissing her forehead. Home. The weeks before the final hearing were a gauntlet. Ethan and Caleb poured their energy into Lily, shielding her from the storm brewing around them. They took her to the zoo, her eyes wide at the giraffes, her laughter a balm for their frayed nerves. But at night, when she slept, the fear crept in. Ethan would stare at the ceiling, imagining a courtroom taking her away, while Caleb sketched endlessly, his art a way to process the uncertainty. Maya and Sarah became their anchors. Maya brought case studies of successful non-traditional adoptions, while Sarah drilled them on testimony, preparing them for every angle Harlan might take. You're not just fighting for custody, Sarah said one evening, her eyes fierce. You're fighting for the right to be a family. Show them who you are. Ethan nodded, but the weight of it crushed him. He'd spent years proving himself to his parents, to the world, to himself. Coming out in a small town had been a war, one he'd fought alone until Caleb. Now, with Lily, the stakes were higher. He couldn't lose her. One afternoon, Jacob called again. "I'm in rehab," he said, his voice clearer than before. "I'm trying, Ethan. I want to be part of her life, if you'll let me." Ethan's heart twisted. He wanted to trust Jacob, but the wounds were fresh. "Get better first," he said. "Then we'll talk." Jacob didn't argue, just whispered, "Thank you," before hanging up. The community rallied around them. Their neighbor, Mrs. Rivera, a grandmotherly woman who'd adopted them as her own, brought empanadas and stories of raising her kids alone. "You two are doing right by that girl," she said, patting Ethan's hand. "Don't let anyone tell you different." But the world wasn't all kind. At Lily's daycare, a parent confronted Caleb, saying, "Kids need a mom and dad." Caleb brushed it off, but Ethan saw the hurt in his eyes. That night, Ethan pulled him close, whispering, "You're everything she needs. Everything I need." Caleb smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "What if we lose, Ethan? What if they take her to Ohio?" Ethan didn't answer. He couldn't. Instead, he kissed Caleb, pouring all his fear and love into it, hoping it was enough. The final hearing arrived like a thunderclap. The courtroom was packed supporters from their neighborhood. Maya, even Mrs. Rivera in the back, her rosary beads clicking softly. Ethan's parents sat stiffly, their lawyer whispering in their ear. Harlan's face was a mask, unreadable as ever. Sarah called witnesses, Lily's daycare teacher, who praised their care, a therapist, who testified to Lily's bond with them, even Mrs. Rivera, who spoke with fire about their love. Ethan took the stand, his voice steady despite the knot in his chest. "Lily's my family," he said. "Not because of blood, but because I show up. Every day. I love her. We both do." Caleb's testimony was quieter, but no less powerful. "I never planned to be a dad," he said, his eyes on Harlan. "But the moment I saw Lily, I knew I'd do anything for her. That's what being a parent is." The Carters' lawyer tried to tear them down, questioning their finances, their lifestyle, even Caleb's freelance income. But Sarah countered every blow, her voice sharp and unwavering. Then, a surprise. Jacob appeared, thin but sober, his eyes clear. He took the stand, his voice shaking. "I'm Lily's father," he said. "But I failed her. Ethan and Caleb, they're her parents now. They're who she needs." Ethan's breath caught. He met Jacob's eyes, seeing the brother he'd lost, now fighting for them. Harlan's pen scratched across his notepad, his face still unreadable. The hearing ended with no verdict, just Harlan's promise to rule soon. Ethan and Caleb left the courthouse, Lily between them, her tiny hands in theirs. The Brooklyn air was crisp, the city alive around them. For a moment, they were just a family, not a case number. That night, they threw a small party at the apartment. Maya brought wine. Mrs. Rivera brought flan, and their friends filled the space with laughter. Lily danced to Caleb's music, her giggles echoing. Ethan watched, his heart full but heavy. Later, as they cleaned up, Caleb pulled Ethan onto the fire escape. The city sparkled below, a reminder of the world they faced. Whatever happens, Caleb said, his voice low. We did this right. We gave her everything. Ethan nodded, tears stinging his eyes. I love you, he said, the words a vow. I love you too, Caleb whispered, and they stood there, holding each other, waiting for the world's verdict. The wait for Harlan's ruling was torture. Days stretched into a week, each morning bringing a fresh wave of dread. Ethan and Caleb kept their routine breakfast with Lily, her chatter about bunnies and stars a fragile tether to normalcy. But the fear was a constant shadow, whispering what-ifs in the quiet moments. One evening, as Ethan sanded a chair in his workshop, his phone buzzed. Maya's name flashed, and his heart stopped. Ethan, she said, her voice tight with emotion. Harlan ruled. You and Caleb, you got custody. Ethan dropped the sandpaper, his knees weak. We won. You won, Maya said, laughing through tears. Full custody. The Carters' petition was denied. Harlan said your home is unquestionably in Lily's best interest. Ethan stumbled home, tears streaming as he burst through the door. Caleb was on the floor with Lily, building a tower of blocks. We got her, Ethan choked out. She's ours. Caleb's eyes widened, then filled with tears. He pulled Ethan and Lily into a hug, their laughter and sobs mingling. Lily, unaware of the stakes, giggled. Hug. The news spread fast. Mrs. Rivera brought a cake. Maya brought champagne, and their friends filled the apartment with cheers. Jacob called, his voice steady. I'm proud of you, he said. Thank you for saving her. Ethan's throat tightened. You saved her too, he said. Keep fighting, Jacob. The victory wasn't the end. Ethan's parents sent a letter, formal and cold, disowning him fully but wishing Lily well. It hurt, but Ethan let it go. His family was here, Lily, Caleb, the community that had carried them through. Months later, life settled into a new rhythm. Lily started preschool, her drawings of Daddy Ethan and Daddy Caleb pinned to the fridge. Caleb's art gained attention, a gallery featuring his portraits of their family. Ethan's furniture business grew, his hands crafting a crib for a neighbor, a symbol of their new life. One spring day, they took Lily to Coney Island. She squealed on the carousel, her pink hat flying off as Caleb chased it, laughing. Ethan watched, his heart full. The world hadn't been kind, but it had bent to their love. That night, as Lily slept, Ethan and Caleb sat on the fire escape, the city glowing below. We did it, Ethan said, his voice soft. We're a family. Caleb smiled, his hand warm in Ethan's. We always were. They kissed, the stars above mirroring the ones Caleb had painted for Lily. The world would always have its judgments, its challenges, but they'd face it together. For Lily. For each other. For the life they'd built, one brave choice at a time.